there is nothing like being a part of a large group of people that really want to work together to support positive change in their community.
Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and today we're going to talk with Deanna Anderson from Montana. And Deanna is a self-described ordinary citizen, but she has done something I think is extraordinary. While many of us are very concerned about the direction of our country or how politics are going or what we read in the news, few of us do anything beyond watch or read information about it or listen to information about it, and then occasionally comment online somewhere or on social media. Deanna Anderson has taken a different approach, and it's started a couple of years ago, and that's what I want to ask her about. And so, Deanna, the first thing I want to ask you is about your fraught relationship with Facebook. Tell me about you and Facebook and your history.
I joined Facebook in 2006, I think, and it was I didn't want to, but I noticed that a lot of my friends and my family were on there and they were exchanging pictures and communicating, and I thought that was kind of cool. So I decided to join. I had just had my first child, and sharing pictures and videos and all of the things that Facebook started out to be. And then in September 8th or 9th of 2020, it had just morphed into something completely different. And it was no longer what I had originally signed on for. I mean, I wasn't seeing, pictures of my friends and my family and those kinds of things. It was, all political. And I know that over time, the algorithms that they have put in place and modified over time. I mean, all I was seeing was was politics, and I was spending so much time on there. Between I would comfortably say, and this is embarrassing, but probably between 4 and 5 hours a day at least, with my nose in my phone, scrolling through things that would take me through a full range of emotions. Um,
What was the impact of that kind of behavior? Because that's a significant time commitment. Did that in any way affect your other areas of life, your work, your family relationships, or anything? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. It's what I would spend my lunch breaks doing. It is, I don't feel necessarily like it was a complete waste of time because, I was engaging with things that were going on. I was learning, I was reading articles, but I do feel like I may have been neglecting other parts of my life for sure.
So when my grandfather quit smoking cigarettes, he developed the habit of carrying around a 2-pound bag of peanut M&Ms with him in the car, and quickly ballooned up to his lifetime maximum weight. Did you find something else had to take the place of that commitment that you had to social media?
Yeah, so when I got off Facebook, I felt like I was going to be initially, I felt I was going to be missing out on a bunch of things, right? Like that's where I get my information from. That's how I connect with the world. Um, but in reality, I mentioned before that we had kind of, all the people that I met, we have kind of created our own social media, our own chat groups for specific things. And that replaced Facebook for me. But it was more purposeful. Like I am in this chat group with these people for a purpose.
Now, what caught my attention about you when we initially had our first email conversation was not just that you're one of these Facebook fasters, who suddenly got off of social media and your life's been transformed, and then you won the Miss America pageant, you started a new business that quickly skyrocketed to 5 million a year, and now you're the host of Good Morning America. I mean, it wasn't like that was a miraculous change in your life, but what you did with your time after that, without neglecting the principles and the concerns you had when you were on Facebook, you took some steps locally to get involved in what was going on. Tell me the day when you first realized that you could do something like that, and then what you did about it.
Well, I don't remember the particular day, but I just had a sudden curiosity um, about what kinds of things were going on where I live and where I work and where I raise my family, where my children play and go to school. So I connected with a friend of mine and she suggested a couple of things. So, I went to a city commission meeting and then I went to a school board meeting and then I was connected to my uh, local Republican Central Committee.
Let me back up a little bit because this is, and the reason why I'm slowing you down in this is because this is where a lot of people I know get hung up and they get stuck and they don't know what to do next. And when they hear stories about people who got engaged locally, all of a sudden it's like, hey, I was doing nothing, then I was doing everything. And, so tell me about the first time you went to one of those meetings. Like, was there anything about it that you thought, hey, I'm glad I'm here. I want to come back. I want to see more things like this?
Yeah, definitely. Walking in and noticing that I was I was literally the youngest person in the room, and I thought that was really cool at first, and then I got to thinking about it. It's not a good thing at all. Uh, I'm almost 40, so being the youngest person in a room of precinct committee men and women that are they're teaching other people
So
about.
this was at the local Republican committee, not the government meetings that you started going to, right?
Correct, yeah.
Did you go to the Republican committee first, or did you go to a couple of government meetings first?
I went to Yes, I walked into my local county Republican Central Committee first. I think that's the first thing I did after getting off of Facebook. So yeah, that was the first thing I noticed was that okay, we obviously have a problem connecting with younger people, which looking at the other side, they're very good at that. Bringing in the young people and mentoring them as far as what the core beliefs of a Republican platform is.
So how did the elderly people that you met there, how did those people greet you? I mean, did they offer you a sippy cup and put you at the special kids table, or what did they do?
No, but they wanted to know me. They wanted to know who I was and why I was there, and all legitimate questions because this was in 2015, 2016. So this was, we had the election coming up and am I real? I mean, and they test you.
Hmm.
They make sure that you're not just there for a day and then you're going to be gone.
So they think you might be conducting espionage for the other party, or they're just trying to find out whether you're serious about it?
Right. And so there is this period of testing. And, so I kept coming back and I volunteered for things, for fundraising events and, certain subcommittees. I would volunteer to actively participate in volunteering for something.
What'd you do at your first fundraising? Because there's a thing that is really alien to most people. I mean, a lot of people have never even been to a fundraising event, let alone been part of organizing one. What was your role, as you recall? I know it's a number of years ago now, but what was that? What was that role, and what was that like for you? What was the experience like?
So I helped with a couple of different things. There are so many things that go into planning a fundraiser. So this was our Lincoln Reagan dinner fundraiser, and there are 25 to 30 tables that seat 8 to 10 people each. So those tables need centerpieces. The room needs decorated. I helped with the PowerPoint presentation of all the sponsors. So that was, I'm, you know, I was.
So it wasn't You weren't called upon to do things that you had no clue what to do. It sounds to me like you were able to do things that you may have already had some giftedness and ability in.
Yeah, and that's really important because we don't want to task people with things that are so intimidating that they back out.
Yeah, at that first meeting, they didn't ask you to get up and give the pitch to give the money, right?
Oh, no, no. Yeah, yeah. They still don't.
Well, you speak very well. Maybe they should consider it. So, how did that make you, like, once you saw that event come off and you saw that you had a role in it, whether that was just dealing with centerpieces and other kind of logistical or practical challenges, how did that make you feel afterward?
It made me feel really good. Like I contributed something meaningful. And it was, you know, afterwards, I mean, there are some things that are done that we each play a part. And if each person doesn't complete the task or project, it's just not as successful as it could be.
But it left you wanting more, it sounds like. So at that point, I've read that you got more engaged and involved, and even in some things that would be considered by a lot of people to be higher level, not necessarily of greater importance, but just things that may be beyond most people's typical skill set, like recruiting candidates or recruiting volunteers or helping to train volunteers. How did you go from making sure that the flowers weren't flopping over in the centerpiece to getting to the point where you're engaged in finding people to run for office or training volunteers to help them?
Just meeting more people, going to places that there's opportunities to connect with people. And so, some of those tasks and projects I don't necessarily do so much anymore, but there's been opportunities to fill those roles with people that I've met elsewhere. As far and none of that I do alone. I mean, there's a large number of us, and we kind of just divide and conquer. We're all good at different things, and we all have different amounts of time to devote to whatever task or project we're working on. So, I mean, some of us are stay-at-home moms, some are retired teachers and veterans, and so none of this is a one-person job at all. So, the recruiting candidates part, that takes us reaching out and bugging everybody that we know that we think would be a good fit to run for, whether it's school board or city commission, county commission, or if it's a, state senate or house seat. So we're constantly looking for people to run. We have with the ultimate goal there is to make sure that there's a challenger, that conservatives are well represented in all of these races.
So it's interesting because a lot of people who are watching this video are probably very aware of and very engaged in what happens at the national level. They're very tuned in to, let's say, the race for the presidency in an election year. They're very tuned in at least to their local congressman or their state senator. Very few of them get very engaged below that. So state legislative seats, for example, maybe they care about who gets elected governor, but it becomes much more complicated and frankly, too much information for some people to engage at the state level, the county level, the city or municipality or town level, and down to, depending on where you live, there are townships and parishes and school boards. How do you get people engaged with something about which there's very little media coverage, first of all? Secondly, the media coverage that does exist is not very useful. How do you convince people that it's worth their time to sit in 3-hour school board meetings 3 or 4 times a month for the next 2 to 4 years?
A lot of those connections take place. I myself am not on social media, specifically Facebook, but there are people who are. And I think some of the outreach happens there. But, if I'm having a conversation with a fellow mom and she's really irritated about something, that's a really good opportunity to invite her to a school board meeting, and perhaps she can provide public comment. And then, if the public comment is something that hey, let's go have coffee and you can tell me more about that. And maybe I can share some other things that me and some of my friends are working on that you may or may not want to help with.
Have you ever helped to organize people who are going to go door to door or make phone calls on behalf of a candidate?
Yes. So my friend, her name is Sandy. I met her at a grassroots leadership academy event that this was, I think, 2016, maybe 2015, somewhere in there. And she and I have been very, very good friends ever since. But that's a huge part of it. So when you have all of these people that are engaged, how do you keep them engaged, and um, how do you bring them along with you? And so I remember door knocking with Sandy for the very first time, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And so
What's
it's
the memory that sticks out from that episode? Because I think that's a big fear for a lot of people. They think you're going to walk up to some stranger's door. All you have basically is an address, and you may know whether they voted in 2 or 3 out of the last 4 elections. So you have some sort of classification of them. Do you remember what it was like walking up to that first door or meeting the first person who actually answered the door?
Yes, so we always go in pairs. We always go in teams. We might have a team of 4 in one neighborhood and a team of 8 in another neighborhood. So we're never alone, which is for a couple of different reasons: safety and taking turns, giving the other person a break, all the things. And so yeah, I would go with her and I would hold all the materials and I would listen to her and what she would say. And, after the first, 5 doors, I thought, gosh, I can do that. So I just started, and I had this little script that I memorized. And, then there came to be more of us, and there were more people that kind of maybe wanted to try it. And so this was maybe a year or so later. There wasn't really a volunteer training, and so she thought, we have, well, and actually a lot of these volunteers came out of a recall petition that she had filed against 2 city commissioners and the mayor here. And they were accused of being in violation of Montana's open public meeting laws. And so through that, we were at the farmers market. We were standing and holding big signs saying Helena Recall 2020, and we would have people come and they would sign. And through that process, I mean, she created quite a following. And so we had all these people now. What do we do with them? How do we keep them engaged and make sure that they stay engaged? And so we she created this volunteer training, and we have a connection at a local hotel here, and we're given a room, the ballroom, and we filled some seats. And some of those people are still helping with door knocking and other volunteer projects, year or 2 years later. So
What is, as you look back over your time doing this, what do you think is the most rewarding moment that you've experienced where you look back and said, man, I am glad I got involved in this. If I hadn't been here, I never would have had the chance to enjoy this?
winning and having influence.
And you're not a candidate other than as a precinct committee person. You haven't run for other office, or have you?
No, I was waiting for that question.
I'm not pressuring you. I'm just saying that I want to clarify for the people who are watching this that when you say winning, you're talking about somebody else winning.
Mhm.
And why does that make you feel good?
Um, oh, because I believe that person is going to advocate appropriately and make good decisions on my behalf. Those are the kinds of people that I get behind. Um,
You've been to the party on election night. Have you been there as the returns come in and for somebody that won?
what do you mean?
Well, there's usually on election night. I'm just saying, on election night, the candidates usually have a little get together, and then they're watching the returns come in one way or another on a computer or something. And when that moment happens, have you been there for that?
Yes,
What was that? What was the atmosphere of that like? Just describe it for people who've never been to something.
happy relief that all the hard work, really, it really does pay off. And then you have to stay connected, to the person so that, because sometimes I think when people get in office, they're in a different environment and sometimes they forget. And so that accountability has to continue beyond election night. It's not just they won and you can just walk away and be off to the next thing. I don't want to say, babysitting because I don't really vote for people or get behind people that need babysitting, but there does need to be an element of accountability thereafter.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time here, so I will ask the question that you just pressured me into asking, which is why, why or when, under what circumstances would you yourself run for office beyond local committee person?
I'm gaining an incredible amount of experience right now with what it takes to run a successful campaign and win. And so I'm shocked they let me out of the back room to do this. I will run someday for something. Right now, I think I'm best suited to be in a support role at the moment. I still have kids at home, and so I want to be mindful of the time that would take away. And I also work full time. I'm a homeowner, and so there's there's various reasons why I haven't stepped up to run as a candidate for something. I might run for school board at some point or maybe even city commission down the road, but I really do feel at this time that my I'm best suited to be in a support role. So
So, my final question, and I want you to address this as if you were looking across the table at the person who's watching this video, not to me, but to someone who just feels overwhelmed with the direction of our country, with the direction of our politics, with the division and the anger and the fights and the stasis, the way that things don't seem to change, with how their values may seem to be no longer ascendant in the culture, but things just seem to be falling away. Talk to that person about what they might consider doing starting today to make a difference.
I would say just pick one thing. Pick one thing, whether it's going to a school board meeting or a city commission meeting, because I promise that you're going to meet some amazing people. Um, and those people are right here. They're right there. They're in your community, and there is nothing like being a part of a large group of people that really want to work together to support positive change in their community.
Deanna Anderson, ordinary citizen from Montana, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.